Now, we're gonna go into what's called the Cave of the Snake, or sometimes called the Cave of His Fears. This cave is said to be guarded by an enormous snake named El Hanesh, or, according to our friend Richard Gabriel, Agatha Daemon. This is a very ancient name for the same guardian. This is the altar at the end of the main corridor, Tomb of the Birds. So at first, no one found this entrance here, but now we see it. It was first entered by Henry Salt and Giovanni Caviglia in the 19th century. Then Andrew Collins found it quite recently. And our friend Richard Gabriel has been in here many more times and documented it thoroughly. But this is my first moment entering the Cave of the Snake. When I walked in here, my voice went dead silent. It's muted. There are echoes in the Tomb of the Birds. In here, there's nothing. It's silent in here. This is part of the altar stone that was once whole and has been cracked and broken because certain people don't care for this site. Certain people have not protected it. This is a giant chamber. I think that's part of the altar stone as well, which once sat right here. Okay. This is the cave entrance. So here's the first chamber. That's where we came from. Okay. I am alone, completely alone, and I'm entering the Cave of the Snake. There are bats all through here. Wow. Look at this. Bones everywhere. Here's a side tunnel. Okay. This tunnel goes about 300 meters back. More bones. This is amazing. Oh, that bat almost hit me in the face. That's okay. This is incredible. Okay. This is where it breaks off. To the left a bit. Unbelievable. We are under the Giza Plateau right now. In a place that so few people have been. Another side chamber. There's not much air down here. Now, that is the tube tunnel. This is where it ends. Right where that dirt is. The entire cave is blocked off. From the other side, we have proof of this. Richard Gabriel has documented this. Zahi Hawass said the cave goes no further, but it does. We have proof that it was sealed from the opposite end. Why won't they let us go through? Because it connects to more. This is unbelievable. That's it. There's a jawbone. This is the end of the Cave of the Snake as far as we can go. It's not the end of it. Henry Salt and Giovanni Caviglia described going further than this. So, when Zahi's team came in with his TV show, Chasing Mummies, they said this is it. He sent a man down here. The man said it ends. But that was a lie. It goes further. It connects to a cave system that goes all the way to the second pyramid, the so-called Khafre Pyramid. We have satellite images to show that. We have Giovanni and Salt's report to show that. This was as far as Andrew Collins came when he made it in. So, that's it. That's as much as we're given. When Richard Gabriel recently exposed his entire documentation of this cave system publicly on YouTube, within 2 days, the Egyptian authorities came out and covered the doors that we believe connect to the other end of that tunnel. So here today, I've made it back in. Someone left the door open, and this is an unbelievable experience to get to be inside here. This is a very sacred place. Very special. Okay. Do you want to describe at this point, as we watch the cave, something about the snake and the legends of this cave and some of that?
It's fortuitous, actually, that it's kept the locals and everybody else away from this, because the superstition is that there's a snake guarding it, Hanash. But in fact, it's a it's a corruption of the truth of the legend. Look at the damage there. My God. Oh, oh, God forbid. Look at it all.
That's all where you're saying the throne was. I didn't see the throne
Yeah,
at all. It's
yeah.
buried. It's you
Oh,
can't see it.
Godfathers. Oh, I was going, you're going to say Hanash is a corruption of the real legend, which goes back to, which obviously was perpetuated by the ancients, um, deliberately so. Agatha demon. It's a good snake. It's a symbolic, but it's a good snake purported to be the spirit, if you like, that guards the above and below that we hear talked of, what is above, what is below, and so on. To give strength to that, I concur totally with Andrew on this because he observed also that at the tube tunnel, inside the tube tunnel, the plaster has been used to actually form little ridges like ribs. And to go through the tube tunnel is to go through the body of the snake, go through the body of Agatha demon,
Mhm.
and which of course falls perfectly in line with what would have been the passage, the sacred passage after a cleansing in the reception area, in the reception chamber, a cleansing to go down through the body of the snake and down underground to the purported city and repository that's deep underground. Now, there, buried in the plaster, there are artifacts
In the floor here.
on the
Yeah,
floor.
you're starting to see some of these bats flying. You can see. So this is starting to go into that main, roughly 350-foot
That's right.
long
Yes. Now you
passage
just
that's leading back to the tube tunnel.
yeah, you just stepped over where there is a concealed shaft that's filled with very clean sand, but is plastered, concealed another part of the overhanging floor. It's where um, uh, retrospectively examination of the photographs showed that there may well be articles of gold still there.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
saying it out now, loud now.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's kind of this ridge dug into the entire floor along the main corridor that is filled in with sand. There goes a bat. Uh, there you can kind of see there's like sand along the middle, and yeah, we don't know if the crack kind of goes a couple feet down into that. Um,
clean sand and a plastered shaft entrance.
yeah, it really could
As I
be there.
described to you, Trevor, very much like an attic. If you imagine, in the ceiling of a house, the attic hatch that goes up into the loft. Well, imagine that on the ground,
Yeah,
um, with a couple of 2 or 3 inches showing of where where it's filled in with sand, the start of it.
yeah, there could be outlets down within that. If that sand was cleared out there, you could just kind of see the crack where there wasn't sand. It goes down a bit. The roof of the cave is the same way. It kind of points up in an A-frame and it
Now, to
V's
say,
down into a V there at the bottom.
yeah, the roof, I will say also, Trevor, I'm convinced of the fact that the roof of the system has concealments. I wasn't able to get up to them. I ran out of time. I needed another visit or I needed a ladder or something, but I'm pretty sure that there are benches up higher. I was able to establish where a mummy was elevated above the right-hand niche that I didn't have time to explore.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, here you can see we're coming up to the end. This is where that first corridor ends, and we're going to come back to this section in a minute, but this is where it jumps over to the left, and then a short part, that's where the first corridor ends at this big slab, and that's something that we're going to show in a minute. It doesn't really end there. That stone is a door. It's mortared into place. It is an invisible door masked to look like
Yeah.
bedrock.
Mhm.
But the natural way to go is just cut over to the left right there, and then there's a little continuation. It goes a little further with some of these side chambers I'm showing right now.
Yeah.
And then we're going to see the tube tunnel that we keep talking about. This is a very narrow tunnel. It's scary to approach. My first time in there, I knew it didn't go very far, and I didn't even go down into it because I could see where it was blocked off. But when I came back in, I did crawl down to the end of the tube tunnel, just like you have done, and one guy on Zahi's camera crew did, and that's about it. I think you and I and Zahi's cameraman that he sent down in there, who came back and said it ends there, which was a lie, are the only three people I know of who have actually been inside the
You
tube
go,
tunnel. So
yeah.
there it is right there. That's the tube tunnel.
And then what a mess it is as well when you look at the photographs I've got from earlier.
Yeah. So this thing gets very narrow towards the end of it. I am gonna show some footage of me crawling into the very end to a point where I would have had to exhale to go any further,
Yeah.
literally, or bend my spine backwards or remove some of the dirt because the dirt is piled up into the tunnel to where it's like you'd have to start crawling up over it and it fills into a point where you can't get past it. But we'll show in just a second that that's not the case. You can see that it does continue past where that dirt is. And it would be a matter of going into here and crawling back outwards, bucket by bucket, taking that sediment you can see in the end there. You see that dirt right there? We could pull that out. And if we did, then we would be able to crawl through this thing just like Salt and Caviglia obviously did. And we'll go see those three large reception chambers they're talking about beyond that point. All we got to do is pull that sand back, at least to this point, and clear it out. Then, yeah, we have access to a very deep tunnel into the whole system. So, yeah, this is a first look of the tunnel here. I will share some of your photos of it too. Were very interesting. You could really see this ribbed structure that makes it look like you're crawling through the body of a snake, like you say.
Also there, middle bottom of the picture, that is actually a little shaft, and it had objects in that which were made to disappear again. I got clear photographs showing those.
We got a little beetle. Scaraby, Kepri. He's telling me to go this way. That's where I gotta go now. Into the tube tunnel. Now I'm gonna show video of actually going into the tube tunnel. This is another one of the videos from when I came back. I found this little beetle. He was showing me which way to go. Kepri.
Plenty of those in there.
That's where I gotta go now. Yeah. Tube tunnel. Okay. Okay.
Two things to bear in mind of greater significance inside there, and that is that when you're about 20 foot into the tunnel, there's little holes in the wall on the right-hand side. And as you're looking into those holes, I managed to get my camera up to them.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, actually, right here.
Yeah, where you used endoscope.
We're gonna see.
And inside those niche holes,
Yeah.
there's clearly a void, a space at the side, alongside the tube tunnel, that's separated from the tube tunnel.
Get back there too.
And the other thing to bear in mind is that where it's blocked at the end, that you described a short while ago, that spoil that is blocking it runs off towards you. Now, as I was looking at it, the piece of evidence that I saw was that amongst the runoff, I saw that, little stones had run down that direction, and in amongst those stones there was some aluminum foil. Now that told me that the filler that had blocked it was put in there from the lower side, not the top side, and they'd obviously included some of their food rubbish in there, garbage.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that, and then I found that tinfoil still in there when I went in. And yeah, I just showed the that little thing I held up was the endoscope camera because we knew you'd informed me we were prepared for this, and I had a plumber's endoscope. And so what I do is I go in, and like you say, this is parallel to over on this side is the continuation of the original passage is what we believe. So you're saying on this side there are cracks that I tried to put the endoscope camera through there to see if we could break into parallel corridor that comes from the original one. And this was a great idea. I can show in a minute. Once I show like just as much of the tube tunnel as you can see here, this is where I start crawling into it. Put the Indiana Jones hat down for this. And I start crawling in. I get basically as far as I can go, and then I back out a little bit into where there's one of those cracks that I can stick the endoscope camera through. And I don't ever really break through into that other corridor like we were hoping we could, praying so hard. But it did prove that I got that camera at least 4 to 6 feet into the wall in a very small crack. And I was down in here completely alone. There were some people up at the restaurant. This is the second time I went in, and they were watching out for me. They were going to let me know if they saw guards coming over my way or something, even though my cell phone had no service, so it didn't matter. But, I had limited time down there. They were going to start worrying about me. I was crammed into this hole, trying to finagle this floppy camera that wasn't very rigid, hard to push through these holes. So I did my best with it. And I think in another sense, we did find proof that that original passage does continue, even though we didn't break into it beyond the door. But we'll show that in a minute, that there is proof that this slab was kind of mortared into place at the end of the original position. Yeah. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm talking about how crammed in I am.
Yeah, there's not a lot of room in there. Very tight.
You can see getting at the end here, I'm really squeezing. I don't know if I can get through that. There's too much dirt. So that's the dirt you'd have to climb over. It looks like there's a lot of space there. That's practically nothing, though. That's where you'd have to exhale and bend your spine backwards. Yeah, and folks, I really tried. I'll tell you, I went as far as I could. But you can see all of this dirt right there. That can get cleared out. Yeah. And yeah, I have let's see, I think I have another cup. I have a couple of these right at the end there. I crawled a little even further, and you can see I had thrown the endoscope up through there to try and see even further. That didn't get anything better really than my phone camera got, but I can't bend my body. Yeah. Oh, as far as I can go. Yeah. You'll see in this shot, I think, exactly how crammed in you have to get. Yeah. But Richard, you and I know that down that hole right there is more than likely the true history of planet Earth and the human race.
It's a fair comment.
This is tight.
I believe it.
I need to go further. I'm sorry, Richard.
I know. Oh my Lord. I was as frustrated myself, believe me. I was in a hazmat suit and I see your sweat there in your clothes, but
I have my nice shirt.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No.
With sand. This is me trying to reverse crocodile crawl out some space, but you can see Richard and I, we braved the spiders, snakes, scorpions, and all of this to really, because we do believe so much that right down there, that's where everything is. And as we're showing this, we're getting ready to get into some of the most absolutely phenomenal material related to this. We're going to talk about how this connects over to the spaces you were talking about before. We're going to show how get back into the plateau maps and see where this goes out to. Yeah. There's the tinfoil right there, you see?
Aha, yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Been in here. Someone's been working. Someone knows it goes back further.
Yeah, thrown down. That hasn't been thrown in as a filler from where you're laying. It's been put in from the other end.
Mm. Yeah, that's the another point of, we have contextual evidence at least to suggest that they have been on the other side of this before. and possibly that they made it in through this other door. Now that right there is the crack that I ended up trying to push the endoscope through to get into the other chamber.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I fed the endoscope camera through. I mean, that's 5 feet away from me that I threaded that needle, and then I threaded a needle inside it, but can't get any further. We're gonna try a different spot. I am really tight in this cave right here, right now. Oh boy. Okay. This is at the end of the tube tunnel. And this is where I'd have to literally exhale to get through here, but this is as far as I can see. I can't get through there, but oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, that's it. That's it. It's too tight in there. This part bends around. I can't get through that. It's too far filled with dirt. This is as far as I can possibly reach into the tube tunnel, and it continues. It continues, folks. I can't get up there, but I will get a picture. That is literally as far as I can go. I cannot bend through here. This is me. This is literally how tight I am in here right now. That's as much as I can do, folks. But you can see I'm reaching as far deep in as I can. Oh. I am at the end of the Cave of the Birds. This is a tube tunnel. You can see right there. It's still going. It's still going. There's some more dirt in here than there was before. If I exhaled or I dug out some of that dirt, I might be able to get further, but I just went absolutely to the end of the Cave of the Birds as far as I can go. Okay. I gotta back out of here slowly. Couple little niches over here, but they don't have holes I can stick the endoscope through. So we did our best. You know, we removed some of that dirt, and then we can get to the end. We can go further. But being down here alone, having to sneak in here to show the world all this, having to wait and pray for the door to be open. You know what's back there? The true history of planet Earth and humanity. That's what's back there. Guaranteed. They wouldn't be cementing this up. They wouldn't be covering this up. When they came in here, they wouldn't be saying that it ended here, because it does not. Giovanni Caviglia and Henry Salt came here in the 1800s. They mapped corridors beyond that tunnel. Okay? Over to right here. The continuation of the first tunnel continues going. That's what I'm trying to get by poking the camera through some of these holes. Okay, oh good, I'm back in the reception chamber. Whew, I didn't even realize.
I think if people could understand that the line of the passageway going down through towards the tube tunnel, it gets to a point where it sort of hits a blank wall, and you have to step left to the side of it to then go forward again and meet the tube tunnel. The tube tunnel is almost disjointed from the line of the passage. But after finding that the evidence of a parallel void, space, chamber, passage, whatever, I know it drew my attention to where the true line of the main passageway, where it meets with nothing, just stops to nothing.
Yeah.
And I examined that, or I examined the enhanced photographs of that, and that's where I suspected that that may be a concealed stone entrance that's been blocked. And that's what led to me passing that info to your good self, Trevor, to check
Yeah.
that out. You can take it from there.
Yeah, well, looking at this map you drew, it helps show this is where the main passage comes right up to here. And now you can see it just suddenly abruptly ends right here. And this is what
Yeah.
we're going to look at. If you come over to the left, like you're saying, then you go a little further and you get to the tube tunnel. So I was sticking the endoscope camera right where this little arrow is, pointing into here to try and break through into the original continuation of the original tunnel. Now I've got a video we're going to show you where I'm standing right here and we're looking at this blocked off end, and you can very clearly see that it is mortared shut. Now, this is something that, we should mention at this point that a few months ago, you dropped this 4-hour expose of this entire complex on YouTube, free for everyone. You shared everything, and that is the main reference that I'm sharing in the description below. This will be the first link so everyone can go to that incredible video you dropped. And we're going to get into soon about what exactly happened. There was a reaction from the Egyptian authorities there that was very telling as soon as you released this film. But as we work towards that information, we want to lock this down, show that not only did Salt and Claviglia say that past here there was 3 more chambers with continuing passages, but there's also a continuing passage from the original tunnel. So if I switch over to here, I have a video that shows that. Let's look at this quick. Here's the seam in the ceiling, right in the main chamber coming back, the main tunnel of Cave of the Snake. This is the door. This is the door that's blocking up the continuation of the main passage. It goes back that way. This passage continues right here. This is all crack filled with mortar. These stones are seamed in. That's all mortar. Look at this. This looks like bedrock. It's not. Look at that. That's mortar. That's mortar. Now, I will say this too. There's a little more of this to see, but you did explain this in your film, and I had that subconsciously in my head, but I totally forgot that you had said that even. It might have been in there somewhere, but when I walked up to this slab, I looked at it and I instantly saw that it was a door. And I think it partly came back to me that you had mentioned that idea, but when I first saw it, it was so unnatural how that entire corridor just suddenly ended with that slab. And then instantly I saw these seams of this light brown mortar on both sides of it, because I'd seen that technique before. I'd been up at Abu Rawash, where there are all these tombs that have just been uncovered in the last couple of years. A whole new section of Abu Rawash. There are pyramid bases, underground tombs, and you see this all over the place. It literally is masked to look like a cliffside, a natural cave wall. It looks like the bedrock, but it's literally a giant slab that's been glued into place with these cracks along the side that are mind-bending. How this could possibly have been, the ancients really never used mortar, ever. They use these perfectly drywalled, perfectly fitted stones. But there were some of these instances where they're trying to make it look natural, where they actually did use some kind of geopolymer or mortar to seal these stones back into place, really make them look like it was just bedrock. It's incredible. So this is definitely a masked door. I'll play a little bit more of this so you can see more evidence. I'll show it crumbles away. This is a mask. I've seen this exact same technique at Abu Rawash. They mask tombs this way. They make it look like it's bedrock sealed up, doesn't go any further, but it's not. This is a door, seams on both sides, deep crack. This is a
You
door.
look
This
like
tunnel
some of it's
continues.
spilled over there.
It's a fact. This is proof.
I mean, that's
This is
rock.
all a crack that was seamed in.
It's very, very obviously clear that that is a door. It's not the end of
Yeah.
the tunnel. So we have a continuing passage there that goes to unknown location, which Henry Salt and Giovanni Caviglia probably never knew about. They probably never noticed it. They just kept continuing on through, where the tube tunnel was already open for them to go. So there's no reason to really stop there and look.
Yeah.
So nobody in history we've ever known about has any idea what's really behind that slab right there. No one's seen it. No one's been inside there. And that's separate from the 3 continuing passages, at least, that Caviglia described when he kept going through.
Yes.
So we have at least 4 continuing passages from the end of NC2 that have not been explored, that have been seen only once by one group who, I don't know what could have driven him to say that it was too uninteresting to continue, but
well, they were only looking with oil lamps at best, or torches, flame torches. They didn't have the tools, equipment, the ability to visualize and see things as we do now.
And as you know, when you get back to the tube tunnel, you're already running out of air. You've got much less oxygen down there. There's ammonia, bat poop.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not easy to breathe by the time you get to the tube tunnel. And then you go through the tube tunnel, it's only going to be worse. So they did not have oxygen tanks and that kind of thing back then.
That's right.
So we have the most tantalizing leads you could possibly ask for here. These caves go deeper. We know that. Now we can start getting into talking about some of this, how it connects into other parts of the plateau. And this is where it gets really, really important. People are going to start to see. So actually, maybe I'll just pull up at this point one of these maps.
Yes, it's worth mentioning, of course, where those marks are, the top left of this. That is, again, credit to Andrew for highlighting this. It's where the radar test was done years ago, and it highlights the shadows on the ground, which I have enhanced, in fairness. But those shadows show the likelihood of a tunnel connection from you can see where the pins are, NC1 and NC2, leading across to the corner of Kefren, the middle pyramid, and specifically leading across to the corner cliff of Kefren, that surrounds Kefren on the 2 sides there.
Yeah,
and this right in the corner there, where the pink is, or red is, that dot between the 2, that is the entrance that is blocked up with boulders, through which a door is accessible that joins into the NC2 system. I had speculated that was there anyway, because all the activity at the bottom of NC at 350 feet pointed to the fact, along with Salt and Caviglia's notes, that if one accepted what they said, that it extends way down below, then there would have to be some sort of secondary entrance, or perhaps third entrance, that leads down to get into the system. And that seemed to be a dead ringer. And to put it to the test, and being so peed off with their lack of cooperation, collaboration, or interest, the arrogance of their stance, I think it was the last YouTube broadcast that I put out, I actually blew the whistle on that, and I stated, look, I'm aware that almost certainly that is a middle door into the system. And I put all this information out in light of hearing how they'd gone into the system at the top end, put a team in there to smash the place to pieces and destroy all the priceless evidence. There we go. That's the corner. That's the cliff, and that's the door in the corner with the boulders, as I mentioned.
Yeah,
And
so
and as you've already
that's the door
described,
that's right
Trevor,
here.
yeah, as you've already described, Trevor, overnight, literally, I announced one day, and then overnight they cordoned that area off, put a tent up in the corner, and my contact, one of the people that were in the team there, they went inside, they conducted some GPR work, which confirmed the city constructions going deep underground.
Yeah. Yeah,
As
that
if
was
they knew that already anyway. They know that already. That's
right.
why they're prepared to do harm to anybody that gets close. They want to get their hands on whatever is down there deep,
Yeah.
exclusively.
Yeah,
So
so just quick, this is a series of them that I put together, and I'll let you take it back to that, what you're getting at. This is where the Khufu restaurant is, the NC2 entrance. This is just a simplified version of what we were getting to. These are the satellite scan tunnels.
mhm.
So this is the door that what you announced in your film was one of the places where the guards raced over and stopped you from fooling around quicker than anywhere else on the plateau.
Grease lightning.
Very,
Absolutely.
very highly sensitive point. Um, and then this is the Japanese team that's been working right in this area. They found this chamber right here, which we can just mention that briefly just now is enough to say they've been working there and they found this L-shaped chamber there, which is
Yeah.
potentially connected.
There's the team at the Japanese site. Coming up closer, see how close we can get. Where they're doing all this work. They just found a tunnel down here. L-shaped chamber down here. Let me see if I can interview someone here.
And maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself, but this is actually what that chamber looks like that they found. It's very close. It could be connected to here, but
Yeah.
I'm wanting to show uh, where you get to here. And you mentioned, first of all, I mentioned this is Corrado Malanga, Filippo Biondi, and Armando May. They're just now coming out with an announcement in the past couple of days saying that March 15th, as you said, about a month from today, they're going to be telling the world a lot about this discovery where they just scanned underneath the middle pyramid. They found this corridor of chambers down running east to west along the bottom. And where I think you're headed with this is this they revealed a little bit last year, but they're going to be sharing more about this chamber on March 15th, 1 month from now, as well as I believe they have scanned the entire plateau, basically areas across the entire plateau. So potentially what they're going to reveal in the next few days is going to be, it could show us directly the connection between this, and what you're talking about over here, this pink dot. I've
Yes.
got that one too for you.
That pink dot, that is an entrance that I
Here we
learned
go.
about at the mastaba there, right?
Mhm.
And I was told by one of, it wasn't just one of the workers, it was a senior person in Zahi's team who was working that area. And I learned from that person that in the mastaba there, there is a shaft which dives down and rises again up into the Great Pyramid, into a chamber, but he was unable to give me any further information where that then led to as part of the cheesecake of chambers that are inside the GP.
Mhm.
But the point I would make about it is, now that for my own gratification, we've had confirmation of that middle door entrance to the system, and I would propose that there must be other entrances, ways of getting into that system further down. Now, certainly down through the causeway, the Kefren Causeway, there are loads of shafts there that undoubtedly,
Yeah,
in some of those cases, lead into the system. But
exactly.
it occurred to me that shaft at the Great Pyramid I wouldn't be surprised at all if that also leads down into the system, bearing in mind that the story I was told, it was reported to me, again, I can't confirm it, it's reported to me. So it would be classed as hearsay, but I'm going to give it to you. You know, to me, it was a reliable source, who told me or explained to me that when the Japanese uncovered the second boat in the pit that marking covers.
And this is the main first boat, Khufu Solar boat, and the other one, there's
The
a
second
couple
one,
boat pits right here.
that's right. Well, the one to the left, where the red mark is, they covered that over for excavation, and the boat was dismantled in the bottom of that pit, ready dismantled, and when they eventually got to the stage of having a press conference to announce that, they put wooden planks or boards across the pit itself, leaving only an aperture to see down in, a narrow aperture in the center. So those who were there to attend the event couldn't view down into it with any great clarity. But I was told by this person, by my friend, that when they uncovered the pit, the reason why they put the building over it for a start, it wasn't just for the convenience of working and so on. It was also because as we're looking at it, the lower left-hand corner of the pit had an entrance, and that entrance led into some part of the underground system. You can actually see from this how close that is to a potential continuation of tunneling running down through, especially if this is overlapped with where the tectonic faults are shown, which I have done in other pictures. So that's another potential connection.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to say that, as you've already reiterated, that come the middle of the month, part or all of this will be validated or otherwise by the results that are shown from the scans of Kefren and surround. So we're all waiting for it. That's why it was sold out within 24 hours, the conference.
Yeah,
but
there's more to say.
It's going to be online.
Yeah.
We understand that we'll all be able to see it online. So watch for an announcement of that.
Yeah, and just to fill in what you're saying a little more is that you're talking about the Sphinx Causeway as well, Kafr Causeway.
Yeah.
In the earlier episodes of Secret Underworld of Giza, working with Bill, we've showed all the scans that he did around this area. He found all these anomalies right in this area that very likely also connect into the chambers Mwanga and Biondi have shown last year, just barely. Up here, he also did a scan and he found this chamber entrance tunnel that seemingly went straight under the pyramid itself, like you're talking about.
Absolutely, yes.
So we have GPR scans of these areas confirming that. And of course, I've been talking to these Italians. We've been in touch, and I've been sharing with them some of the information just, in the past week, especially since their announcement. I sent them all of the scans from Bill and the different projects he's worked on. Then they're very open to working with Bill and I. They said they'd already seen my films and stuff, so we're poised to work together, and we're really, really excited about what they're going to show. Because in episode 3, I also showed the entire thing going on over here. What Bill and I have been really working on is this area, and we see underground tunnels that are connecting in from that side.
Yeah.
And we were really helped by this very same Italian team, these two guys, plus Armando May also, and a couple other people working with them. And they are developing their own satellite-based scanning method, the SAR, synthetic aperture radar, Doppler, this method of actually measuring things that it goes beyond what many of the other satellite-based scanning methods have been able to do so far. But they're providing very thorough scientific papers to show their whole process. It's very well presented, and it makes sense. They're showing the actual scans and how they built the models from the scans. You can see they're not making this up, and that's that's referring, of course, to the paper they already released in 2023 that was about the Great Pyramid. And when they did that, they showed 20 unknown structures within the pyramid that no one's ever been inside or sensed before. And you can compare that to the Scan Pyramids project, which has been going on since like 2016 with Japanese University of Cairo, the ministry, this officially sanctioned project that after years really just came up with two kind of hazy zones that might have another chamber. These Italians came out independently and dropped 20 structures within the pyramid. So
but
far
Trevor,
beyond.
can I throw in a quote for you, Trevor?
Please.
I'll let you guess who said this. Yes, but there is nothing else to find here. We know all that there is to know about this. There is nothing else here. Unquote.
It sounds like a Dr. Hawass, if I had to guess.
No. Could it possibly be?
Maybe Mark Lehner, probably Hawass. Yeah. It's absurd to suggest that there's nothing under. We showed 20 different structures around the Sphinx so far in this series. In past episodes, we showed all kinds of stuff on this side. This is the first episode we're really focusing on the northwest end of the plateau, where all of this is coming into the picture. But we have so much proof that there is a complete network web of tunnels under the entire thing. And the deeper down you go, the bigger they get, the bigger the spaces, the bigger the tunnels.
Yeah.
So to put some context on that, let's just mention that Malanga and Biondi and Armando May, they in the past week, as they've been putting out their first and second press release about this conference, they're going to drop all of it. They said that they are estimating structures based on these scans going at least 1 kilometer deep, and structures or spaces underground that are comparable in size to the dimensions of the pyramids themselves. That is what Armando and Corrado and Filippo have said they are going to drop on March 15th. Scans going 1 kilometer deep, spaces underground as big as the pyramids themselves. I definitely got goosebumps when I heard this, because I know this team is not kidding. Their paper from 2023, it holds up, and they're going to show us everything. I have been hearing rumors even that they've got the whole Sphinx area, that they've been working on that too. Corrado told me a couple days ago that they are still scanning right now. They're still working on it. It's going to be thrilling if they can use some of the scans that Bill got in 2006 to validate some of that stuff. If they have areas around here, especially, or up by here, we could see a month from now a connection between all of these things that we're hypothesizing. And with that, I want to go back quickly to something you mentioned quick, but needs more discussion. I want to talk more about this door. You said in your film that you dropped, that it was very clear these satellite tunnels that we can see, more than likely connect straight from the NC2 to this door. And this is the courtyard surrounding the middle pyramid. It's called G2, or, Khafre or Khafren pyramid. We know it probably wasn't built by Khafre, but it's okay. This entire side of the pyramid, between the western face and the edge of the courtyard surrounding it, there's about 15 different doors along this cliff face facing inward to the pyramid.
I did do an inspection. I did do an inspection along all of those, Trevor, and it's fair to say that some you can't discern, but for the most part, I was satisfied that that these were storage rooms rather than anything grander than that.
Most of these are blocked up with stone. Some of them are in disrepair. The stones have fallen out, and you could just crawl right down in there if it weren't for the fact that a couple months ago when I was last there, this entire side, you can't walk there. This entire side is now shut down.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. This was not the case a couple of years ago.
That's right.
But 2 months ago, I walked in from this side. There was plainclothes guys right here telling me to stop. And there's a mounted security officer, guy on a horse here, also watching. They said I couldn't go past right here. And so you cannot walk up the west side. A couple months ago, at least, you couldn't go anywhere in here. And there's a chain that cuts across right about here.
Yeah.
And I want to just give my own testimony to what you said about this when you really made it clear that there's a likely attachment from here to here. Your video came out, and as you say, within a couple days, we'd heard reports from our friend on the plateau that they'd set up this tent here. They had workers over here, and when we heard that, from our friend Trevor Alexander actually first, then I checked with another one of my friends on the plateau who's worked in some of these jobs. He said he'd even been behind this door before, but that it was the most protected. They're never going to tell you even what's behind there. And he couldn't even get me in. This is a friend who gives me free videos of underground tunnels all the time. But even he said, yeah, they are working over there. So they set up a tent here for a good 3 or 4 days, and then they broke it all down and tore it away. They went back to work more over here again after that, he said. So 3 days of intense work, walled tent, nobody can see even what they're doing. But I can insert into here afterwards some images I have of actually showing, like when you look at this door, this is another from before that you would give me. You can see where they pulled all these stones out. This is proof that they did do work there at that time. And a couple days after you dropped your whole revelation about it, they pulled all these out up to this big one basically, and then refilled them back in. And I can show proof of that. They pulled them out wide enough just to step in here and do something, go make some changes. Said Richard Gabriel's on to us. We got to go. We got to go in there and cement something up or destroy something or seal something. We don't know what they did inside, but it was very important work. They were there for 3 days and then broke it down and left. So this was basically the ministry acknowledging that they're watching you for one thing, that they're paying attention to what you're sharing, and that it is very important for them to, possibly they believe that it was, maybe it is connected over to where the Japanese are about to get down into this chamber. Is there a connection there they're worried about? Are they worried about, somebody finally clearing out NC2 and connecting over to here from there? But you have to also factor in the fact that if this was just a tunnel from this door straight to NC2 back and forth, that's it, big deal. Why would they be covering this up? It would not make any sense. If it was just going back and forth and there's nothing else to see, of course they'd open it up. They'll be able to charge extra money to the tourists like everything else they do. They can make, there's no harm in showing people if it's just a connection between the two. So it's very clearly something that, we know Sultan Kaviglia has said there's 3 chambers going every which way over here. There's probably a similar situation over here. It probably does connect to this chamber, to these chambers, to this chamber. All of these things we might have confirmation of within a month, but very clearly they needed to get into this area right here as soon as you got all of this exposed and do something. Now, after this happened, I was in Egypt, and when I came out of NC2, I walked right over, and I did just walk past this. There's this chain up, like I say, right here. You just step over it and walk in, but as soon as you're past the chain, you're risking having the guards yell at you. So I just casually but swiftly crossed the chain and walked over here, and heading over to the NC2 connection door, see if anyone yells at me for crossing this barrier. And here's the door. After Richard made his expose on the Tomb of the Birds, they came over and sealed this up with stones. We know this connects over to the Tomb of the Birds. So why is it being hidden? Let's see if we can get a view inside. Yeah, there's some stuff in there.
I think he's coming over. Okay. Got a guard coming over here. Oh. No here? Oh, okay. So there's just a couple seconds of this, and then the guard tells me to leave. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I wasn't expecting even to get that much time, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. I'll also show the photograph you gave me showing inside here. So that's really seemingly to me proof that there is a connection between these tunnels here. And these might be natural cave systems or who knows, but also it seems to be proof that the authorities are aware of what's in here, and they don't want people to understand that there are connections to the much deeper secret city and all of that, you know, these friends of ours are really going to blow the lid off of a month from now. So this is unbelievable timing. And it's, you know, Andrew Collins is about to release his revised edition of his book Beneath the Pyramids about this, so there's good timing there too. There's attention coming back to it, and with all the things that are coming through with Bill Brown, as we're trying to get the permit to actually do some digs over here, and by his stable project, this little dot right next to the Sphinx, we're poised to really, with all of this information, whatever Malunga and Biondi bring forward next month, we have the absolute proof of an underground city, you know, if you want to call it that, a huge metropolis type structure. We have so much that's potentially seeming to be under the ground, and we have so many potential access points to it to explore. So there's absolutely no reason we're not acting on some of this, cleaning out the Tomb of the Birds, the tunnel, the caves, looking for additional shafts that go out of there, but we already have at least 4 leading out from there into the greater system. So yeah, there's a lot here that we really need to talk about publicly and really get this conversation going, and people need to start seeing this. Nobody's seen any footage from in here aside from what I've got, what you've got, and the little bit Andrew has showed. So we're going to be getting that information within the next month, and it's going to be validating, I think, a lot of the things that we're proposing to be true, and which the actions of the ministry have proven further that we're probably right about. And by the way, I want to thank you, Richard, so much for all of this work that you've done and the years you have dedicated to this site, that we wouldn't have any of this without. When you dropped that documentary, 4 hours of telling the truth about this, that rattled some cages. We both know that's true.
Yeah,
it really did. They've been watching you. They've been watching Bill. They've been watching me. You know, the highest levels of the authorities are aware of the line that we're pushing back now, to put more pressure on them to acknowledge, respect, like go in and clean up, take care of. You know, we're trying to put the world's eyes on this amazing complex that is so important. And by the way, we didn't even really get into it, but I mean, aside from some of this artwork that you found on the walls, there are no identifying marks as to what period this is from. There's no obvious hieroglyphs that are early, late kingdom, anything like that. All of it kind of has this feeling of being ancient, you know, not just old, but
the only thing I can tell you, Trevor, on that, if I can interject and just pass on to you, I've been asked many times when I've been showing the illustrations or the enhanced illustrations that have come out from not just here, but from, well, it's over 80 world locations now, from other people, researchers, independents who still regularly send me photographs requesting that I put them through the analysis process. It isn't that it's particularly difficult, it's just that the process takes a hell of a long time. And on a particular single image, I can spend hours on a single image going through all the potentials to find the optimum result. And what I would say is that from all of the work that I've done on this imagery from ancient times, with regards particularly to the timing of it, I can say this. I've investigated many pictures which have already been accepted by the mainstream as coming from a particular time period where they're dated, essentially. And just as an exercise, I successfully found that by looking at one or two of these pictures that where someone made a comment about one here or there, and they caught my imagination. I suppose my eyes have become trained after a long period of time. I can recognize stuff now that I couldn't before without doing any analysis. So it gives me an inkling I should look at this one a little more deeply. And when I've looked at these pictures, what I've found is that behind the accepted ancient illustration, that the illustration that the world and the mainstream accepts as an illustration, that in fact it itself is graffiti, and that there is an original art of some kind, an illustration, a picture, a depiction behind the accepted one. Now, what that does is that allows me, it gives me, it hands me a date. What it means is that the ones that I'm finding with these and the characteristics that go along with them, that they belong or originate to a date beyond that which has been given to the one that's accepted by the public, by the authorities,
Top of it.
the mainstream. And those dates, I know that these pictures already, I can say, the other thing, the other connection between them is there are features, there are connective features in how these pictures are displayed. I won't go into it now. It's a subject all on its own. Well, you can take it. I'm being sincere. There are connective techniques that are used. So I'm able from this country to connect one to this country because a similar technique has been used. God knows how these are applied, because very often they're almost like photo images that are somehow burnt to the surface. But in any event, so now I have, for my own satisfaction, a connection between these different parts of the world, which relates to a particular timing in the world.
Yeah.
That then gives me a confidence to say to you now that these pictures, that many, if not all, but certainly a lot, go back to a time which is beyond, for me, I'm saying it now, beyond 10,000 years.
Yeah, I would interject one thing quick as you're talking about this, is that there's something about these rounded undulating forms that come seemingly naturally out of the cave and then were modified to become like animal figures and heads and things. This is not something that you see in any of the Egyptian temples very often, as much as in like Chauvet or Lascaux or these cave paintings of France and Spain, these things that are going back 30, 40,000 years old. It definitely has this feeling more like that, where it's like an incredible skill is used to pick out these forms as if, oh, this thing could look like a buffalo if I shaped it this way, or, you know, if you can pick out these features and then turn them into something that actually looks like a crocodile or something like that. That's more that mentality of this kind of like Lascaux or Chauvet, some of those caves that they have paintings that actually use the form of the cave to have a three-dimensional effect to it. Like they're somewhere between a painting and an actual bas relief, they're coming out of the wall kind of.
But there's also, Trevor, this thing that ties them to events through terraforming. I can quote. I'm thinking of one site that hasn't been really brought to the world to be investigated yet, where there's the fabulous boats in tumult, foundering on the sides of cliffs, high cliffs in Canada, and where the local legends of the Indians who occupy the area, they talk about arriving during tumult in their boats and tying their boats to the mountain peaks to save themselves, and they settled there as the water receded. Or I can go to let's pick another one. How about the Hang Son Doon Cave in Vietnam? Miles and miles long, but way up, hundreds of feet up on the side wall of the main vent that takes you down. There is a huge ship on the wall there. You can actually see the painters, the ropes, and the figures in the boat. It's incredible. These are scattered, and there's another one it brings to mind about to do with a boat again in the desert. We're looking to Peru now, and there's one in particular. There's many I've got there working with good people, researchers like myself, all over the world who are producing these things and finding them for me to look at and enhance. There's a ship there, a vast ship in the desert that's terraformed in the desert. You can only see it from satellite, for God's sake. So there's all these things over time that is far more extensive and great than the focused discussion and attention that we're giving to the Giza Plateau at the moment. But there has to be a linkage of that time for all these things to a time, a forgotten time in our prehistory. And that's the obsession, certainly my obsession, to know more of our prehistory. Why is there an amnesia here? Why is it so inconvenient for the mainstream archaeology to take it aboard and investigate and discuss it? Why is it such poison to them for independent researchers of good mind to come up with things that they can only ridicule? It's crazy. There's all this out there to be uncovered, and all I can do is applaud our friends who are going to be doing this revelatory presentation in the middle of the month, and I pray to God that out of this presentation that they will feel or are able. There's no blockage put on them to show those things beyond the pyramids that undoubtedly they will have found in the ground, which will be our validation, and perhaps release everything, free it from the confines of corruption and politics and greed, and force it out into the open so that the world can take a huge leap forward in understanding of our true origins. And isn't that what it's all about in the end?
Yes.
Where do we come from? Who are we?
That's a very
What is
good
our
point.
potential for the future?
And we should
what it comes down to.
We should make it clear also that the reason the Italian team had so much success with their scans on the Great Pyramid is because they were working from satellite. They were not associated with the ministry or the Egyptian authorities in any way. If they were, that would have had the report would have had to gone through the media control in the country and would have been censored, much like Dr. Abbas, his report that William commissioned. Like they took 18 months to release that report, like we discussed in the earlier episodes. That's not happening to this Italian team. They're completely independent, nothing to do with
exactly.
That's why they were able to give the report of everything they had found in that original scan, which is what they're going to do to the whole plateau now. So just like you, I'm so thankful for this team. What they're doing is pivotal. It's going to help us all so much, and we're going to help them too. And like you're talking about too, there are these pieces of art down there that you have seen that practically, basically nobody else has ever witnessed with their own eyes, and you've trained your eyes to see these images. What we really need is some, I think, professional art restorers, and maybe that team that just worked at Esna.
Yes.
Okay, Esna Temple of Khnum in Upper Egypt. This temple, they just did a beautiful job. I mean, this ceiling was black a few years ago when I first saw it. the whole thing is brilliant. It's like a rainbow bright. The colors are so
Yeah.
brilliant. We need a team
Trevor,
that can clean
despite the
this.
destruction, I would say, but from what you're saying, despite the destruction in there, it needs professional people to go in with professional um,
Yeah,
means to work these illustrations, to recapture them,
yeah.
because despite the destruction in there, those people who were behind the destruction, they haven't a clue what's really in there,
Mhm.
even now.
Yeah, and another very important point I think you're bringing us to now is like that they the nobody knew about the place until 2008, and then once they did, it was locked, which, like I say, could be a good thing, but that means that in these past 14, 15, whatever years, the only people who have been going in there are official teams, but official teams that aren't on camera like Zahi was with his show, teams that we don't know about, but teams that do have a key to that gate. And
Yes,
so if those are the only people who have been going in there since you and Andrew in that time, these are the people who clearly are responsible for some of the destruction that we can
that's
see
right.
between the time you were in there and when I was in there. And there's
Yes,
so much destruction. And you've told me, and I've seen, especially looking last night back at a lot of the files you gave me, there is an intentional there's an intention to target these relics of religious significance, the altar stone, anything that they could recognize of being this very important value to humanity and to our understanding of that culture has been targeted and
yeah,
destroyed. Sad to say, so sad to say. But
yeah,
this is evidence that officials have done something wrong there.
yes,
That
yes,
it's not only not transparent, but that they are actively attempting to make sure we don't find out about these things that are
yeah.
irreplaceable and priceless. So
And the reason, Trevor, I'm going to put the caveat on the end of it. The reason being, there is something even more important that justifies their actions to them.
yeah, that's what it all
Justifies
proves.
harming people. And the proposal is it is what is deeper down below, the potential advanced technology of our own ancestors that is still there waiting to be regained, recovered,
Mhm.
perhaps advanced in a way, um, not taking our technology today to a more advanced stage, but a different type of technology that has long since been lost. And
Yeah,
we're in another timeline working with fossil fuel, nuclear energy, and all the things that we know of today. But back then, the promise in legend and in folklore is that they worked with earth energies, they worked with crystalline energies, they worked with energy direct from the sun. They had profound knowledge that enabled them with those energies to manipulate weight in objects, move stone, and do many other things that we just simply speculate at the moment. Because for some reason, whether it was imposed or by some other means, who knows, we are a race right now who are suffering from collective amnesia.
yeah,
A few know and believe that the truth is the opposite, that there is that technology still waiting to be recovered,
yeah,
and they want to possess it.
yeah. It's potentially a uh, I mean, as all these things we've been looking at with Bill as well, it's something that crosses the line past like all these things that they just want to keep hidden because they can make some extra dollars off of. That's a separate category from when you get into the things that are clearly leading to chambers that house technology and records that are both so important they could actually throw off the balance of power on Earth as it is. Things that would
Yes,
threaten the narrative of the Vatican or the United Nations or political or religious
yeah,
upset, it could really change the way the entire world looks upon itself. It could give
yes,
humanity this knowledge of who we really are, where we came from, the history of
yes,
planet Earth that would that would challenge the authorities in place on the
Yes.
planet today.
Yes,
So
exactly.
this is where we get the mafias, the secret societies, the very powerful royal families and whatnot coming after us for this. This is why
Yeah.
they nearly killed you for it. This is why they sent Bill and his family death threats in Chicago for telling
Yeah.
the truth. This is the part that the world really needs to understand. And it really takes some courage from people like you telling your story about this to drop that out there, because yeah, they don't want people to know that they're doing this kind of thing to keep it all quiet. But if the world does realize that, they'll speak up. The world will care about this as much as you and I
Yeah.
do. You know,
Well, this is the train gathering speed.
we're putting it out there, and I think we've covered most of this stuff that I really wanted to make sure we got to today. But I think I want to hand it over to you to wrap up with any other things you think we should really just mention before we close it up. Some of the bullet points, I'll just throw out quick again. As we've said, we've got at least 4 known continuations coming out from NC2 that very likely connect into the deeper system. At least 3 large chambers Salt described past the tube tunnel, plus this door that we can very clearly tell is a slab put in place to block the main tunnel, plus however many more we might find coming out of all the chambers that have floors that have never been cleaned out, that may have additional shafts leading out. So we have potentially endless continued paths to explore here. And we have a lot of evidence based on the actions of the ministry that show they have some knowledge of what's actually behind the one door by the middle pyramid that likely connects, knowledge that they have, obviously been in there and done certain things. We didn't really talk about when you go off to the right-hand side, that corridor going down from the main entrance. When you were in there, that hole that was dug way down, and I'll put in the short video I have of crawling down to the bottom of that hole. That wasn't there when you were there.
No.
Somebody dug that hole probably 20 feet deep, vandalized the stairs over there, totally destroyed them, left these boards and like an electrical wire hanging down there. That wasn't even there when you were. So
no,
we have proof
those sets were pristine. But I did propose back then that was one of the places that I identified where I expected something concealed to be found. Now, the illustrations, they give clues in the way that they're presented to the walls. And this has been put to the test elsewhere on the plateau and successfully been put to the test. But in the way that some of the figuring is presented, it actually gives you a directional pointer to look for something concealed. And I picked up on one indicator in that area of those stairs, and whether they've picked up directly on mine or whether they deduced something themselves. But in that area, I believe that it's still there. What I think is concealed, they missed it. They misread and they missed it. And I know that further down within the system, I've picked up and I've said there's at least 4 places that I would say are hot places of interest that I believe they've missed. I'm obviously not going to give any details of anything to do with them.
Now we're gonna come deeper into this right side. So this is very tricky. Well, I don't know, maybe we could go down there. I don't think I can do this while filming. Okay. I got down to the bottom of the hole. So a metal spike in there. It's another piece of metal. Oh, it's very dusty. This is the bottom. This is down. This is down into the hole. On the right side of the entrance, just inside the tomb of the birds. This is the electrical wire I used to climb down here. So, this is me inside Tomb of the Birds. Deep chamber that's right underneath the right-hand side when you come down into this chamber. So you can see this just comes down maybe 15, 20 feet. And then we get to this, which is got some trash blown into it, of course. But possibly sand, possibly a skinny continuation going down, maybe. Okay, we did it. Okay. I can't climb down or up with the camera going, so that's it. That's the pit. Yup, okay. That is where I just went down into there. So that's up to the entrance.
I had offered, Trevor, with the director in the plateau and others, when I wrote to the ministry as well, I offered to share all this knowledge and material with them, to them. And although physically on the spot, every effort was made to take what I had at the time. But on the promise of me giving over everything later, I managed to walk away without doing that. But it was perfectly clear that from that response and the fact that there was never any follow-up, that they weren't interested in including somebody that was a potential leak to what their agenda was, that might have blown the whistle on them, or presented them with a situation that they would have to deal with. And I have to say that I have protected myself. I'm going to say it now, and it's a good thing that I get it to put it on this broadcast as well. I have protected myself in the past and have now, that I have actually prepared a dossier that is out with, let's say, sufficient people, independent of me, that if anything ever happened to myself, then that would go to the press, that would go out, the reasoning, the grounding, everything. The whole beans would come out.
Yeah.
So I've got an insurance policy that I've taken the trouble to prepare for myself. That is how serious I view the whole thing, even though I'm back here and all that happened behind me over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's that important, because I know other people have lost their lives for it.
Oh yeah, I mean, same here. Yeah, I've definitely told a lot of friends, like tried to made a kill switch basically for myself, because
you have to.
Yeah,
you have to, until this comes out. And that's why I'm praying also that this conference, that it'll all happen from there. It'll all start from there. And anybody that has any interest in finding more detail, Trev, you've already mentioned, but I will say that at the end of all this, folks, I've got what, four, I think, 4 YouTube presentation things that dribble on and give the whole lot, heart and soul. And you'll have access to those links again.
Well, I'll put those links all in the description of the film, and I'll also put a link to your website, the new website link you've got, or whichever you've got, because you have this website that is so packed full of information. And we're talking about some of the other things that we've mentioned in the earlier episodes about the men being killed in the collapse shaft, some of the projects with William, the solar cross. You've got so much information on your website. So anyone who's watching, Richard's website is a bundle of stuff you're not going to find anywhere else. Really,
I'm actually loading. I'm still loading it, transferring, but at the moment you can access it. It's richardgabriel.uk.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll put that down, and your your kind of index of all the articles you've put out. It's amazing, fantastic resource to look into so much of that stuff, because you've really been embedded in the city of Nazlet El Sama, in the village there, into the local culture. And that's what it takes. That's why Bill had so much success, because he's he's learned how the system works. He knows all the people, the locals. That's really what it takes to get this deep into subjects like this as you have, and been able to bring such good information. I'm thinking I'm going to also just put out a very long version of this film that has all of our long extended scenes of what we're just putting excerpts of into this particular episode. But I'll put out another video that,
Yeah.
for the people who really want to immerse themselves, I've got over 2 hours of footage inside
Yeah.
the cave and the tomb. I'll put all of it for those who really want to look deep. But
Yeah, don't miss it, folks. You know what you're saying there. Definitely, yes. Don't miss it.
yeah,
Um, it's all about motivation, I think, Trev. Um, you know, I've encountered many people along the way with the Egypt work and elsewhere, um, that that are motivated to make a fortune, and oh God, get rich, you know, and become famous. But you know, I'm in retirement now. Um, uh, I would be sitting on a fortune now if I hadn't spent the fortune of my life actually going to Egypt and self-funding.
yeah,
Um, you know, I've never looked for riches. I've looked for knowledge. That's what I've wanted, the knowledge.
yeah.
And I think it's all about motivation. I think that the door's open for you if you are seeking knowledge primarily to understand and know where we came from, understand people. And
Absolutely. Mhm.
you know, we're surrounded all the time, I have to say,
Yeah.
by people who are motivated in a different way,
Hmm.
who are academically motivated, who are cash motivated, fame and lights motivated. You
Hmm.
know, here we are on screen, Trev. Um, it's because you can't do it any other way. If you're presenting something, you've got to be on before the camera, haven't you? You've got to be.
Yeah.
But I
But we know
it's,
that, like we've talked about, this is a real thing. These, if you call them curses or standing waves or energies that are whatever you want to call them, there are things that are in place here where people like you who have a good heart that are doing this for the right reason and not for exploitation or money. Um, those kind of people can't really get into the deeper stuff. It's real. It's true. There are.
I'm so glad you mentioned it, Trevor. In fact, I'm so glad you mentioned it, and I
Very
will jump
important.
on the back of what you're saying. People out there that have got stamina and are still watching this. I'm just going to reiterate again that when you go down underground into the Giza Plateau, assuming for one moment that there is a repository, there is a place there that was created and designed by ancestors of ours who had advanced to a high technology that's different from ours, but advanced nonetheless. That they put in place safeguards. Those safeguards are translated into a fear that there might be some snake guarding everything. But I think that all that is mixed up in the fact that they did put safeguards in place, but those were vibrational safeguards. I believe that from the crystalline technology that they used, you know, people refer in legend back to the Tuaoi stones, you know, and there's a lot that has come back in legend to describe those and the power that they had. But
And they're
having
coming back.
experienced these changes underground, when you go down into NC2 and go down underground, go down deep, you notice a change. It's difficult to put into words, but it's like this feeling of being covered in static electricity, like a spirit wind or something.
Yeah.
You go down through, and it suddenly gets to a point, a sort of tipping point, where suddenly, like a switch is flicked, and you feel this sort of sensation of static come over you. The deeper you go, the stronger it gets. Now,
Yeah.
I go with the legend that the place underground there is protected, but it's protected by some form of energy that potentially, and I would lean towards some form of crystalline energy that is sufficiently powerful that if a person isn't of a vibration, isn't of a plus minus tolerance of vibration, that sits or fits within the vibrational atmosphere that has been created, then as we know that this has happened, where people become ill, they actually have to flee. They become into a panic. They flee because they can't tolerate this change of vibration. It's almost like walking into radiation, but it isn't radiation of the nuclear type that we described today, but it's real all the same. I mean,
Yeah.
I can quote, I'm not going to go into it now, but I could quote stories that I know of where people have tried to go down through and had to come back out rather damn quickly because illness suddenly came over them of sorts, put them into a total panic that they couldn't explain, understand, or let alone understand. So
Anxiety or
what I'm
nausea
saying
or
is,
headaches, sometimes nosebleeds or even hallucinations,
yes,
even at some
I
point.
think that is a protection that the plateau, this place has. And I think that that's one of the reasons that certain people, I'm not going to even, let's not mention his name, but certain people have not been able to penetrate or have held back from penetrating that deeply, because of the potential harm that it may do them. The legend says that the place is protected, and I think that's the story. That is why it's a vibrational protection, and
Yeah.
it's real. Anybody going in there will feel it. I'm not just saying this just to perhaps steer others away. You'll
I
find
felt
out.
that when I first walked into the Tomb of the Birds too, something changed immediately. I felt something. And then also when I went from the tomb into the cave, there was a shift of energy from the
Absolutely.
acoustically too. I was speaking as I did that. My voice was like sounded normal in the tomb. As soon as I stepped into the cave, it went dead silent, not an echo.
Yeah.
Very different energy and a different feel in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, all these things would have been gone and stolen long ago if there weren't
Yes.
these actual protections put in place by the highest minds this planet's ever seen, by the way. Like
Yes.
the
Yes.
people who buried this time capsule were 1,000 times wiser than any of these corrupt, people
Yes.
that are not giving it the right attention or energy. The Nazis were trying to get in there.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys. Come on, you're
Yeah.
so far from the energy that's required to pass through these energetic barriers.
Yeah.
That's what gives me hope, and a lot of what Casey says too. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it would have flooded. They moved it if there was something. Oh, it's not there still." It's like, you don't think they know how to divert water? In the case of one of these chambers getting flooded, they don't know how to make an outlet, or they were
Yeah.
masters of diverting water for one thing. So the
Yes.
argument of it flooding and that negating the possibility of a record hall is actually to our benefit because it keeps people from thinking it could be down there when it sure is.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
and yeah, there's so many things I think that have been put in place to ensure that these
Mm.
exact minds that they knew would be after this stuff at this point in time will not be able.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Mhm.
yes, I believe so. And I had that one visitation that one time. I went down there because it was the time when I went in there after they'd done all the destruction, prior to the latest destruction. And I went down to my knees. It was the chamber before you get to that last passageway. It opens out very wide, if you recall. And I went to my knees there and I switched my flashlight off, my torch on, and I was broken. I have to say, I wept. And as I put my torch back on, I saw a figure standing to the side. And the best thing I can say is I don't like to put labels, but nonetheless, to the classic pictures of different types of non-human, I would classify this person as looking like the Arcturian style of person for a split second. And in my head was when I was consumed with the thought of why was there a prevention not done to the destruction here? And everything in its time was coming in here, everything in its time, everything in its time. And I felt comforted to some extent, the fact of that, but I felt such sorrow that the whole system and what stood for, the people that it stood for, our ancestors, that it had been raped, it had been so violated. It left me feeling sick, absolutely sick to the stomach.
Yeah.
And that there's got to be a balance. The process of karma has got to balance this out in some way. And
Yeah.
perhaps this presentation in the middle of the month, perhaps this is the real start of it all.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's so sad. And, I figure I just mentioned quickly too about like a similar feeling I had. I had those kinds of feelings in NC2 as well. But afterwards, I ended up in Amarna, Tel El Amarna, in that area in Minya at Tuna Gebel. This was the similar type of structure. It's an animal sanctuary, cemetery underground, and it's a huge underground city of the dead that is full of these mummies. I have extraordinary footage to share of this that I'll put soon enough. I'll release this footage.
Yes.
But I went so deep into this. They told us there was over 1,000 tunnels. They call them streets because you could drive a truck through these tunnels.
Wow.
They call them over 1,000 streets, spanning over 50 acres, all underground. And I
Wow.
went very deep into this. As far as I could go, I mean, the time was limited. My flashlight battery, if that died, I would have been deep, deep without a
Yeah.
light. And so, I only went so far, but I also there was this feeling of I was crawling over these potteries that were full. Each one of these giant jars had like 3 mummies of falcons and
Wow.
ibis, birds. It was another tomb of the birds, and there must have been 1 million mummies. I mean,
Good
there's
Lord.
thousands of these jars filling these tunnels up nearly to the ceiling. Anyway, it reminds me of what you just said when I got to the deepest part of that cave and I found some of these pristine mummies wrapped. Like this one hawk must have taken days to wrap so perfectly. And it was overwhelming. Emotionally, I stopped. I did like you said, turn off the flashlight for a minute, and I just like sat there. And yeah, I've been brought to tears a lot of times in some of these places. I don't even know what the emotion is. It's a mix
Yes.
usually, and so it's a confusing, like, I mean, for one thing, you're trying to wrap your mind around what happened in these ancient times to make this the way that it is.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're trying to wrestle with how could anyone disrespect this so much to allow it to be in
Yes.
disrepair? How
Yeah.
sad is it that this is in this state now? And it's
Mm.
so emotionally, it's tough because you and I, this is our life. This is what we live to do.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to stop you or I from reaching for these secrets because we do know their potential influence they could have on the world. Imagine,
Yes.
you and I have the capability of conceiving of what this could do for the world. If we find this energy
Yeah.
technology, this medicinal technology, vibrational harmony technologies, this
Yeah.
math and this science and geometry that comes along with all that,
Yes.
these are ideas and technology that can overnight transform the world into a paradise. We're on the front lines of this information war, and we're pushing this line back, and we're putting a lot of pressure, as well as the Italians are putting a lot of pressure on the official mechanism of the authorities to address, acknowledge, and take some action on this thing. We've forced them to acknowledge that there is evidence, there's at least 99% assurance that there are many continued paths to follow here. There's an unlimited wealth of discovery waiting right here so easily. All we've got to do is remove some sand. We just want to show that that's the truth and that it has been neglected so far. It's been not only ignored and neglected, but intentionally damaged. A very disturbing, sad state of affairs. And I think we've done a really good job of laying this out here. And your experiences there have been so helpful. I want to thank you so much, Richard, for all this information you're bringing forward, all the years you have put into this. I know how much time you've put in here. I was able to navigate that entire structure flawlessly. I had it, the whole map, like the back of my hand, because of all the work you had done, everything we talked about before. And I was so blessed. It's like you're saying, like, you're not going to get even through that gate if the netters are not with you, the spirits, the forces of nature that are, there are things at work here that are really, I felt so blessed. You know, when I had this feeling that morning, I just, you know, I was thinking about that film where that one guy made it. And I said, I got to walk back to that corner. And when it was open, I felt really accepted. And I still took a moment to ask the spirits if it's okay for me to be here. And, you know, this is why you and I haven't run into any of these white widows or cobras down there. I think because, you know, we can get along with the spirits there and the animals too, the bats and whatnot. Some people have a harder time with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you now to just give some of your very last thoughts on it, and we'll wrap it up. And I just want to thank you so much for all of this, all the information you're putting out here, and hopefully this can lead to some more projects in the future that we can both work on and see much more of what this complex has to offer. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you for some final thoughts now.
Yeah, bless you, Trevor. I mean, the thanks goes two ways, Trevor, because you know you've put hours and hours to this, and you will do. You'll have to put this in a full presentation state, but it'll come back to you. You know, that's the way karma works. Good things happen for good people, and you know, as far as this is concerned, I suppose one thing that sticks in my mind, looking back over the years. It's quite a few years ago now. I was having a conversation with a family group. We were sitting having tea on the street. We were talking about all this sort of stuff, and um, you know, everybody was very relaxed, and the conversation was flowing freely. You know, there was no sort of stigma. Everybody felt comfortable, and the family members, the Arab family members I was with, mostly gentlemen. There were a couple of women there also, but it came up in the conversation where, and I'm paraphrasing now, but words to the effect that, you know, when we were children, they said that the plateau was our backyard. Said at the weekend we used to go have picnics on the plateau. And sure, we would find this or that and we would be able to sell it to tourists or something, but it was no big thing. He said, because we were able to earn money from our animals and everything was good. He said, as children, he said, we protected the plateau ourselves because it was our backyard, it was our heritage. We didn't have to have the wall that's been put up by Zai Hawass, which is there to possess the plateau, not to protect it.
Mhm.
But as children, he said, when we were small children, we would go on play and find things to play with on the plateau. We would go down into the shafts and look around. We knew everything about the plateau. He said, in these deep shafts, for instance, at the Solar Cross, he said there were side shafts and tunnels that allowed us to go horizontally or on an incline down into those deep places. And there were children that were lost down there. But we knew of the things that were down there, that there were connections between everything. He said, we knew it all. He said, if you speak to people who are willing to talk to you, the villagers, any one of them knows about the plateau. Any one of them might not know the detail, but they know what's down there. And that message came back to me so many times from so many people. We already know what's there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's their backyard. It's part of their heritage.
Yeah, a lot of
And
our friends have mentioned that, especially I would say the great Kemetic wisdom keeper Abdel Hakim Aoyan. He
That's right.
famously spoke often about playing in these tunnels when he was a children, the
Yeah.
ones all along the Sphinx Causeway that are connected
Yes.
down at that maybe 100-foot level or so.
Swimming in the water
And
down there as well.
and
And
he did also say that at one point one of his friends, another child, went down and was playing in those tunnels. He got lost and he didn't come up until he reached Saqqara. He came up at Saqqara.
yeah,
So this is
you know,
many miles away, very long tunnel.
quite so. And of course, it brings to mind those tunnels that were collapsed by the army trying to blow up one of those roll stones in it. That was, I told you, didn't I? That was the day that my father had a heart attack and died back home.
Yeah.
And that happened at the time when I heard the booms when I was up early that morning, and it was where they collapsed the tunnel because they stupidly overdid the explosives.
Mhm.
But of course, knowing it is one thing, but they are so suppressed now. They're in a state where the animals can't be used. They're not allowed on the plateau like they were before. They're controlled. And I believe that the average at the moment, the earnings there is an average of $2 a day. And they're poor. They're kept poor. They're suppressed. And of course, houses are being knocked down and they're being shoved to the back end of the plateau. I mean, I've been in the flats there, and on the face of it, they seem quite reasonable and so on. But as we were told straight away, my first question was, where do you put your animals? We've had to get rid of them because there's nowhere to keep them. We're not allowed to keep them here.
Mhm.
Now, we know where there's a graveyard over the back there, but it's an involuntary graveyard. It's where the animals are taken to die. It's horrendous. And, the people have been and are being shunted off the plateau to make way for this vision of Disneyland that is being built as the corridor is widened alongside the plateau to join up with the motorway for tourists and so forth. And all down along there will be lovely big hotels and it'll be all landscaped and so on, but not before what is below ground has been stripped, ripped, and raped. It'll be the perfect cover when they start doing the development fully
Yeah.
along where the village is being knocked down for them to
Yeah.
actually get to what's below ground.
Yeah, well, the
Um,
wall will be moved further east,
that's
and
right.
more of that area that's village now will be part of the plateau technically, and
Correct.
all the harder
Correct.
to get into those areas. Yeah,
Absolutely correct.
yeah. This
So
is the final battle. Yeah, it's
it
us
is a
versus
final
Disney
battle.
World versus
And
the theme park plateau.
yeah,
That's
and in the
what we.
meantime, um, in the meantime, the diggings below ground are going on secretly with the Japanese. They're undoubtedly the position that they're trying to get in there is to meet up with those two ramp corridors that
Mhm.
the last scan showed go deep into the ground from the Great Pyramid, part of the complex that was revealed.
From
So
Malanga and
much
beyond.
to
Yeah,
it doesn't take much deduction to put two and two together.
yeah.
So this is important.
And they ought to watch our film number 3, where we show there is another access point to those ramps, as far as we can tell. That they're trying to
Absolutely.
excavate. There's
Absolutely.
probably many
Yes,
entrances to them.
that's right. Yes. That exists right now.
Um,
Absolutely.
you know,
So to anybody watching this, we said multiple times during this, we've made reference to the fact that there is going to be this incredibly well subscribed presentation in the middle of the month, but people have
yeah,
to somehow grasp that it really is of paramount importance. This is going to be a
yeah.
turning point for the
Let
public.
me show one of these last couple pictures quick, actually, as you mentioned that, because I've got a couple of pictures. These came from Corrado Malonga's film that he put out last year, which was only in Italian. But he showed a couple of the pictures of G2 of the middle pyramid that are very, very exciting to see. This strip of chambers right along the middle of it. Here you go.
Yeah.
This is one of them, and yeah, you can see there's this corridor going. This is east to west. In the middle pyramid, there's these like double tuning fork looking shaped shafts going down on either side. And we're expecting they're going to reveal a lot more of this, but here you can see some of the original scans from the satellite. Here's another that shows a little bit. You can see these like odd looking rib shaped kind of shafts going down. But this is just such a small fragment of what they're actually going to be bringing forward. And yeah, I think you and I both have so much appreciation for this Italian team. They're our allies, really. I feel
Totally.
like immediately is, I tried very hard to reach them. It took me some time. Not all the email addresses worked, but now that we're in touch with them, this is incredible. What they're going to reveal in a month from now is so huge that that's just one of the last points we have to lock into this film here, is to make sure everyone pays attention to that. And I'll put some links in the description to that. So on March 15th, 2025, everyone can be there. And the 16th as well, the day after, I think they're going to be revealing more of the actual scans. So the 2-day thing, it's going to change the world. And we know that the Egyptian ministry is going to black this out. They're not going to say a single word about it. They're just going to ignore it, is what's going to happen. And they're going to sideline it, if anything, but probably just absolutely no comment. And the world's media will not pay attention to it like it would if it was a ministry sanctioned project. So we have to expect that, and we have to help these guys get this blasted out through social media, because if we as humanity really see the implications and the importance of this, we have to care and make it get out there for their own protection too, because these guys are at risk. There's a lot of people who want them dead, just like us. It's real. That's real.
Absolutely.
So couldn't be more exciting. We're set up for an incredible year. And, Bill and I are still working alongside with you to get funding for all these projects. We do have an excavation project lined up for, off the east side of the pyramid over by the stable. We're very close to being able to get this actual permit to go through, in which case we could be lining up official projects, not only in the village, but also at NC2. With you and I could be working on clearing that tunnel. It's possible. And and then
ironically, I have to say, Trevor, as well, Bill ironically is working with a new set of equipment that he's coming to terms with now, which is designed primarily to heal people through the use of vibration, techniques of vibration. And it's quite ironic. It's come full circle, and there he is now actually doing it.
Oh yeah, well, Bill and I both have this. Very much. It's like we want to explain all of this information that shows that this kind of technology was existing back then, but also we're ready to move right into implementing it back into the world today, because that's kickstarting the new golden age. And Bill he's building these things along the lines of med beds, essentially, or things that are not only physically healing, but also spiritually activating, chakra activating, helping you to connect with your own soul type of technology. That's part of what the technology is. It's a spiritual, like you've said. So bringing that forward is one of the most exciting parts. Bill and I both, we take breaks from doing all this Egypt research to start working on tensor rings and vibrational copper and that kind of some of these things that are very interesting technologies. We'll definitely have to highlight a lot more in the future episodes, but it is that time. It's time to reinitiate the golden age. That's what these records were for. If you understand the Yuga cycle and the golden ages and dark ages, every time you hit this end of a golden age, it's time to bury the time capsule. And every time you come around to this point in history of the dawn of the age of Aquarius, after the age of Pisces, these ages pass, and whenever it's the dawn of age of Aquarius, it's time to open the time capsules that were buried back in the age of Leo. And so this is a more complicated cycle. If you understand it, you understand that these things were designed to come forward to humanity at this exact moment, which makes it so exciting. And these prophecies were built into the pyramid as well, into the Great Pyramid. You can see, this is how many years per inch, and these timelines coded into it. They're saying, right now, today is when we get this stuff back. And we're just trying to help that come to fruition. It's a bigger plan, but we know that we can help it. So
absolutely. I mean,
What
I
more
would say
do
on both our behalf, as my parting word, Trevor, is that to those out there who have sort of gone the marathon and seen this through to the end, this presentation, if you really want to do a small thing to help, I would really humbly ask you when you see this to share, 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 share. Please share it.
Yes,
Pass it around, spread the word. You can do no greater help, give no greater help than that. Just share it. Okay.
absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? Share Richard's own videos that'll be in the description linked. Share Richard's website as well. So much more information there. It's all going to be in the description.
Thank you, Trev. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you, Richard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's
Yeah, thank
nothing
you.
I'd rather be doing. We've been talking about this so many months. It feels amazing to finally get this information out.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, perhaps tonight I'll sleep easier. I don't know.
Yeah. I'll have about a week of editing to start putting this all together, but
I know.
I'll get it out as soon as we can because we want to time this with Andrew's new book coming out. It should be interesting. Whatever he revises into his story of it,
Of
and
course,
the
yes.
Italians bringing this information. It's going to be a very exciting year for Giza. We
It
could
is.
actually
Absolutely.
be excavating there by the end of the year. That's definitely possible as of now.
Yeah.
By like September, it's possible a project could come through. So please help us manifest that out there. Envision that happening because it can, and I hope it does. And
Yes.
yeah, I think you are
Well,
destined to be part of the official cleanup and project at NC2, and I can't wait to see that happen as soon as possible.
yes.
I want to be part of it.
Come the day. Come the day.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you, Trev.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard. And we'll talk again soon about more of this stuff, a lot more that you've been involved in that relates to all this too. And I
Indeed.
thank you so much for at least getting this NC2 material locked down.
Yeah. Bless you. Thank you so much.
All right. Bless you. Take
Okay.
care.
Okay. Thanks. Bye bye for now.